Hi there, we are back. And we are back with a delightful gentleman. But I can't say that. I have to say we're back with two delightful gentlemen. Or else, you know what? I'm going to be missing a partner tonight. So,
No. You have Air Force and Army. You
yeah,
can't go wrong.
I get it. I'm sitting here with with Marc Thurston, Army, but not just Army. A gentleman that's dad was in World War II. Am I right?
Yes, he was. Yes, ma'am.
And what did your dad do? I mean,
My dad was in the Pacific, and he fought in the Pacific for 3 years. He was in the CIC, the Counterintelligence Corps.
ooh.
And
What is that exactly?
well, the Counterintelligence Corps was the Pacific equivalent to Europe's OSS. And the CIA became when the OSS and the CIC coalesced after the end of the Second World War,
Right.
they became the CIA. And
Wow.
so my dad was doing that in the Pacific for 3 years.
And when did you join the Army?
I went in the Army in 1967, in the late winter of 67. I left high school prematurely.
Yes,
I got a
was
little
reading
excited and had to be somewhere else.
That. Now, how old were you when you did that?
17.
17.
And I just turned 18 about 8 months later when I went to Vietnam
Oh,
in the
my-
fall of 67.
And what were you doing in Vietnam? I mean,
In Vietnam, I was infantry. I was a grunt, and I was paratrooper. I was a ranger, and I spent a year fighting in the jungle. I started out on the Cambodian border,
oh boy.
and we had some big battles in late '67 on the Cambodian border, fighting the North Vietnamese. And I was in a separate brigade, the 173rd Airborne Brigade.
Okay.
And the 173rd was the first Army full-size combat unit deployed to Vietnam
Okay, tell
in
us
May
what,
of '65.
What does that mean when you say that? I'm not,
Well, they weren't Green Berets, small band Green Berets, small fighting forces as there had been in Vietnam up to
Right.
this time. As a matter of fact, the 173rd Airborne was specifically formed and trained for deployment to Vietnam. They were to be Westmoreland Strike Force. And it was all paratroopers, rangers, an elite unit. And the unit went there on Cinco de Mayo, May 5th,
wow.
1965.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So, and that was, we're talking now
50?
54 years ago.
54 years ago.
Hard to
Wow.
believe, isn't it?
And it's
Now,
astonishing.
when you say a ranger, airborne ranger, what is a ranger?
A ranger
first
is
of all?
somebody who's had ranger training, gone through ranger school, and it's just more advanced infantry tactical training. And it really, I think the primary purpose of ranger school is to weed out those who just simply don't have the kind of endurance necessary to do what needs to be done. And so it teaches you how to push through
No
as
matter
much as
what.
anything
no
else.
matter what.
You
How-
didn't
how to
get
go
to do any of the easy work. I know that when they send in the Rangers, they're sending in the top flight fighting men.
Wow.
And
Now-
so we thank you for that service.
Well,
And
it was
how-
my honor, thank you.
Well, how did you get to be on the plane, though? I mean, as a paratrooper.
I was a paratrooper. We were all trained to parachute. Not all Rangers are paratroopers.
Okay.
Some are, some are not.
Okay.
And not everyone is, well, how do you say it nicely, crazy enough to jump out of a perfectly good
Yeah.
airplane. And
I have to ask you, I've always wanted to ask somebody this, and now I have a chance. You're on the plane.
uh-huh.
That door opens.
Mm-hmm.
You're all ready.
Mm-hmm.
What is your first thought? I mean, I would be like, I'm not going. I don't care what they say. I ain't going out that door.
I'll be absolutely candid with you, Pink. There was not one time I stood up to go out the door that if they didn't say sit down, the jump's been called up, the wind's too high in the drop zone, I wouldn't have thought to myself, thank you, merciful Jesus. Because you're just scared to death.
I
If you're
know.
not terrified to go out that door, something's
Something's
wrong.
wrong. I was going to say, it
Yeah.
has to be, Marc. I mean, really.
Every time is
And you're
terrifying.
kids. You really are kids.
Well, most
18,
of us,
19.
most of us are pretty young guys, under 20, the vast majority.
And it's not just jumping. We picture, because you see all the movies, they're all
Right,
jumping
right,
in the daytime.
right.
There's nighttime jumps.
There were night
no
jumps.
Clue where you're going.
I had one night jump, and it was one of the most exciting things I ever did. It was in Colorado. It wasn't in combat. Thank
Okay, and
merciful
what happened?
Jesus. Well, I'll never forget. We put our chutes on, went over and got in a C-141 jet.
Oh.
And we were going to go out the side doors of the jet. And at first I thought, okay, all right, it's going to be my last jump, 30th jump in the military. And then it was over for me. I was going to go home. It was just
Right.
before Christmas of 1969.
Wow.
And so we got out, got in the air, traveling along. And it seemed so nice at first, because you're traveling along and there's the hum of the jet engines. It's really kind of quiet.
Right,
You're
kinda
inside
calming,
this, you're
yeah.
in sort of this embryonic state, and just this, and the red light inside. And I thought, okay, this is cool. I can handle this. And then they opened the side doors on the aircraft that we were going to go out.
Right.
And it sounded like the whole world rushed inside that aircraft, just this like this. And I thought, oh, God, what am I doing? This is stupid. And I just remember, I'd be berating myself, and then the next thing I knew, it was stand up,
Oh, wow.
hook up.
Hook up. No.
Yeah,
There
you
you go.
hook your parachute up and check equipment, sound off with equipment, check, stand in the door. And all your world, all your focus comes to looking at the lights. There's a red light and a green light. And it's red now, but it's going to turn green.
And then it's your turn.
And then you go out the door. All of us in a group of jumpers go
really?
down holding on like this.
At the same time.
At the same time. Not simultaneously, but one behind the other.
Right.
And I'd never made a jet jump before, so I had no idea what to expect. And I'll never forget, a jump instructor in our company called us aside. And he said, well, guys, I want to bring something to your attention. Don't forget this. And I thought, don't forget. Okay, what don't we forget? And he said, well, don't go to the door, grab the door, and throw yourself out like that, which you usually do when you're jumping into prop blast.
Right.
Yeah, because it'll, you don't want to be blown back into the aircraft. So you've got to try to exit it forcefully. Well, in a jet,
Okay.
if you do that and your parachute comes open into the hot jet blast, it'll melt your chute.
Oh, no.
So he said, now remember, there's an air spoiler on the side. When you get to the door, there's a platform, which I'd never done before, and the air spoiler. And he said, just go there and you get on the platform and kind of step to the side, and you'll go underneath the aircraft. And I thought, okay, step to the side, step to the side, step to the side. And that's all I was saying in my head when I was looking at the light's red, it's red, please don't turn green. Please don't turn, step to the side.
Malfunction there.
Don't go green, step to the side, step to the side. And you just have this kind of
wow.
mindset, and then and then you go out, and I stepped to the side, and I just went under the aircraft like that. And it was one of the sweetest jumps I ever made.
Really?
It wasn't violent. It wasn't like being blown from a cannon. It was just soft and nice. And I went under the plane like that. My chute opened, and there was about half a moon out. It was early December. And when it's a half moon, it's all the way up. It's pretty well overhead.
Right.
And I could see my other friends' parachutes. The white silk was illuminated by the moon. And I thought, my God,
It's beautiful.
it's beautiful. This is my last jump. I'll never do this again. I'm going home. It doesn't get better than this. Oh my God, where's the ground? I looked down like that, and there it was, bam! And I just hit the ground, crumpled. I wore glasses then. My helmet came forward and broke my glasses on the bridge of my nose. And I remember seeing them fly off in the air like this. And I kind of pulled myself together and collapsed my chute, and I was able to find one half of a glass. And I put it on like that, and
Monocle.
it became me monocle.
Yeah.
And, and I found my friends.
I was going to say,
and-
you never forget that as long as you live. I
Never.
mean, really and truly. But then now, you got out of the service,
Mm-hmm.
and you got married.
A few years later, I was.
to a lovely young lady with a little daughter.
Yeah.
So you had a built-in family right from the beginning.
I did, and my wife and I met in Northern California. She was just finishing up a master's degree in theater,
Oh, wow.
and had a bachelor's in fine arts, and a lot of education,
Right.
and one of the smartest women I've ever met. And being a high school dropout, I thought, okay, this is a good example.
Marrying up.
Okay, so now I love this part. It's like a journey, but road in back. I mean, you just went up and down in this journey. You completed high school at a junior college.
What I did was I went to junior college for a year and a half. First, I
Right.
worked. I had a few jobs.
Okay.
And I worked in a sawmill, and then I worked in the woods, logging, and did a season in the woods. And after
What were you,
almost
about 22, 23?
22, 23, and after almost being killed about the third, fourth time in the woods,
Why? I'm going to ask that. A
God.
big bear or something? I
the
mean, I
woods
gotta know.
is logging is one of the most dangerous occupations on the planet. That and fishing, commercial fishing.
Really?
And guys get killed and injured all the time in mining. And I had a variety of things happen, but the last ride of Marc Thurston, I drove heavy equipment and did what they call choker setting, where you take a wire rope, thick wire rope, wrap it around a log, cinch it up, and then you put one end onto a bowl line behind a cat or a yarder, which is a machine which has a line going over the side of a hill. You'll see these, and they'll pull logs up onto a landing.
Okay.
So I drove heavy equipment, and I set chokers. And my last day, I was driving the skidder. And the skidder was a rubber-tired piece of heavy equipment, had a bed, or rather a scoop in front, and behind it, sucked the logs up behind it. Well, my last few days, the woods, we were just about ready to shut down. It was early November. The rains are just starting to happen, and you can't really operate when the rains come.
Right.
So they had me, we were on the lee side of the hill, and they would have me come up behind trucks where they would spin out. We were trying to get all of our logs out before the woods shut
Right.
down. And I'd come up behind log trucks, and with the scoop in the front, just give them a little boost to get through it. And this was, the military term, get over. This is get over time for a couple of days. And the skidder I was in had a drive shaft, which they'd kind of pieced back together again, welded, but it was turning out a true. So it was like this, and it was right underneath, and I was in a cage where I was driving it. And I finished with the last truck. I was just coming down the hill like this, moving along, and all of a sudden the drive shaft separated. And the next thing I knew, these halves were swinging around underneath the cage, took out all the hydraulics, the brakes, the
Lord.
steering. I had nothing. And I was doing about 30 miles an hour going backwards on this road. And over the side, it was, a couple hundred feet down into some trees. And I'm just hugging the side of the road like this and kind of starting to tip, and I couldn't jump out. We were doing 30, 35 miles an hour. And as I was going backwards like this, there was a 90-degree cut in the road, and right beyond that was where we had all of our logs. It was the coal deck. And so I thought, if I can just make it through. And it was getting over like this, and it was starting to get really hairy, and I hit the 90-degree, and I went boom like this inside of it. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't drop I couldn't drop the loader, the scoop in front to drag it to a stop. It didn't work. Went across into the coal deck and kind of went up a little hill.
Oh, that stopped your momentum.
Stopped the momentum. Then I rolled back, and then I dropped the scoop down and went. I got out every four-letter word in this language. Went through my head. I swore at that piece of equipment and just had words with it. And then I sat down and had a little coffee and half a sandwich, and I drank the coffee, ate the half sandwich, and thought,
Yes.
I'm going to school.
Yeah, and that's when you went to USC.
And that's, well, actually, I went to junior college for a year and a
First,
half.
okay.
Took all my GE.
Gotcha. High school.
Then,
Okay.
and that finished high school, finished all my general ed requirements for an undergrad, got into USC on a full scholarship, and studied music, voice, opera, art song.
Never knew that. I mean, everybody, you know how you think you know somebody? Because I was introduced to Marc through my partner, Chaplain Dove, and never knew that you were into the vocal. So you had a voice then. I mean, you were...
Night and day,
Oh, my goodness.
you are the one. Only you beneath the moon and under the sun.
Oh, my God. You got to come back and sing. We never knew this. You should have him in a program.
Yes, we
now we
should.
got to do that. Oh my God, I love it. Really, you have a nice voice. Hello. Been hiding it is what you've been doing
I know,
there.
spent a lot of time hiding from time to time.
I know. Well, we're going to get it out. Wow, I can't believe. And in vocal music.
Mm-hmm.
You also. So that was for 4 years you were there.
I was here, it took me about 5 to finish it all up. And my wife was also in law school. She started law school at Southwestern. So both of us were going to school at the same time. And we brought with us her daughter from a previous marriage, and I adopted her daughter at this time, same time. And we also had her dad with us. Her mother had passed in her second year in school while we were here. And her dad, wonderful man, retired, lived with us as well.
Okay.
And we were a family.
I love it. You also, when you went to finish USC, you got something from the German consulate. What was that?
I was a recipient of the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung.
Whew,
And
okay.
yeah.
And what was that?
Well, Konrad Adenauer was the first democratic president of Germany after the Second World War. They called him Der Alte, the old, and they said that respectfully.
Okay.
And he was a remarkable man. And so the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung fellowship, scholarship, was an equivalent to a Fulbright.
Oh.
And so it was a full scholarship to go over and study. We lived in Heidelberg, and I studied in
wow.
Stuttgart. And I had a great time. I loved being there. A dear friend of ours who was studying language, and then he moved into medicine and became a doctor.
Oh.
And we had known each other in Northern California when
Right.
when my wife and I were first together. And so now here we were
Yeah,
living together in
right.
Heidelberg.
Deja vu, I think you.
Yeah, all
people say
over
that.
again.
You worked in the movie business for about 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
doing grip work and.
Little assistant film editing with my brother-in-law, did a variety of things.
Okay.
And it was hard to make ends meet.
Yes, and
It's
then
feast or famine.
right, and then you went to law school.
Well, not immediately. What I did was I segued. I kind of talked my way into a management position of a paralegal school, and I was the dean of a paralegal school,
Okay.
and I just quickly pulled things together and relied on my wife, who's a lawyer,
Right.
and everyone there thought I was a lawyer. And I mean, it wasn't much of an act to pull off. Just put a suit on and act like you know what you're doing.
Right.
And I had no idea what I was doing.
Oh, that's
and
funny.
so
How long
You
did you
did
do
it
that?
really well.
they didn't catch on for a long time.
Wow.
I did it for about a half a dozen years, and then I started working in a law firm with a lawyer who I'd become friends with through the
Right.
program. And then I decided to go to law school. And that was in my early 50s.
So that's when some of the problems began to happen.
That's when Vietnam really began to catch
Right.
up with me.
Right.
And
Tell our audience in what way, meaning, I mean, it caught up, but how did that affect one, in other words?
well, I had a variety of problems that I was dealing with.
Right.
I was exposed to a lot of Agent Orange. They just sprayed it everywhere, particularly along the Cambodian border. They had, actually, believe it or not, they had industrial strength Agent Orange, which they sprayed in the heavy jungle areas, the
Right.
triple canopy where we were. And then they had Agent Orange Light. And they sprayed it where the foliage wasn't so heavy. So they just dumped it on us, turning, vast swatches of land into lunar landscapes. And we slept in the dead leaves that
Right,
fell off the
right.
trees, and we
Breathed it in.
put
I
our
mean, yeah.
put our canteens in the water. And so, everybody that I know that was in my unit, and most Vietnam veterans that I know that are alive today, have some Agent Orange presumed health problem. And I have heart disease. I've had one major heart attack. And then I also have PTSD issues, which were extreme. And I had no idea what was going on with that. And had to come, that was a whole come
Other
to Jesus
issues,
thing,
right,
if
right.
you will, to figure that one out. And someone that we know, Shad Mishad,
Yes, yes.
Sure. Who's been on our show?
who's been on your show. I first came into contact with the VA and people like Shad
Right.
in the early 80s when it first hit me really hard. And I knew something was wrong and I had to deal with it and figure out what it was. And the first, this term, post-traumatic stress
Right.
disorder, was
Yeah,
just
what is
coming
it?
into being.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
this? And I saw, there's an article in Newsweek, and I remember I was reading it, going through it, okay. And then on the last page, there was a 10-part quiz. And if you answer yes to 2 or 3 of these, you should see somebody. If you answer yes to 6 or 7 of these,
You better see somebody.
call 911.
Oh,
And, it's that kind of thing.
yeah.
And I went down a yes on every one. And I thought, oh my God, I've got to take care of this.
Yeah.
And so I went to the VA and I found out about the first VA outreach centers. The first one was in Venice, and
Wow.
it still might be there. And I went and joined a rap group. I love that.
Yeah, I
Real
like that word.
anachronistic,
Yes.
a rap group. And I did that, and I began to confront things and began to sort of understand what was going on. But you don't understand the full nature and the extent of the problem, I don't think, until we got further down the road. And probably one of the clearest insights into what I was dealing with and many others were dealing with was when it came to my attention that men don't fully develop their frontal lobe until they're probably in their mid-20s.
Wow.
So if you have real trauma in your life, it interrupts the development of your frontal lobe. And with that, a whole host of problems. And so once I began to realize that I was dealing with a lifelong thing, that probably pharmaceuticals were not going to help, I had to find a way to manage it.
Manage your life.
Yeah,
so that you
manage
could-
my life.
that's
And
right.
so that began the whole journey of trying to realize this isn't going away. This is the gift that keeps on giving.
Correct.
You've just got to learn how to get out in front of it.
Right.
And
And
so
to
that-
live with it. I'm going to stop right now for a second. I'm always proud at moments like this because I tend to tear up a little bit when Dove does this, what he's going to do next. But this program is all about lives well lived, Marc. It just is. No matter what, no matter the age of the person or where they're from or what they've done something to make their life worthwhile for others to understand and be proud of them. And we certainly are. I am so proud that I know you and consider you a friend.
Thank
And
you.
Dove,
Thank you.
Dove adores you. And Dove, you have something that you're going to present to my friend before
Yeah.
we go on.
Well, one of the the hats I wear is as president of the LA National Cemetery Support Foundation. And we decided to do something that had never been done in 100 years that we've been around. And we issued what we in the military call a challenge coin, but we call it a presentation coin. And on behalf of the director, Tom Ruck, and the board of
yes, I know him.
directors, and as president, I am really proud to present you with one of the very first editions of the Los Angeles National Cemetery Support Foundation Challenge Coin. And
Well, thank you, Brother Dub. Thank you. I am honored to accept. Thank you.
we
thank
are
you. Thank
absolutely
you.
thrilled to have
very
you in our
much.
community. I know personally of the work you've done to help people with claims,
Well, no,
with appeals.
I'm going to tell them that.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like
Thank
you to
you.
tell everybody
Thank you.
what you do now to help others.
Well,
And what is a VSO?
Yeah, what is a VSO?
well,
Except a very official,
Special person.
man.
I sort of segued into this when let me take a step back when I was in law
Sure.
school. My first month in law school, 9/11.
Wow. Oh, oh.
And 9/11 absolutely knocked me on my feet, off my feet, put me on the ground. I just knew that something wicked this way comes. And this is evil, and this is going to take a lot of lives, and everything has changed.
Yeah.
And nothing will be the same again. And I was stunned by it, and I began to have flashbacks, and I had all kinds of sleep problems and one thing or another. Law school is stressful enough as it is. And I began to have real coping problems with school. And at Southwestern, I was at Southwestern Law School, and you have to carry a 2.0 both of your first 3 semesters. I mean, you know, you must have a
Right.
2.0 to continue. And I just
Barely.
missed
Oh, missed.
a 2.0 the first semester,
Wow.
and then the second semester. And that was it.
Yeah.
There's the road.
Right.
There are the bricks.
That's
Hit
it.
them. And I was stunned. I'd never failed at anything before like that, and not anything I put my mind to. And I worked really hard, but I just, you know, it was just more than I could deal with. I had incipient heart disease, serious PTSD. I had hepatitis C that I'd picked up from a transfusion. It's cured now, about 4 or 5 years ago, and these new amazing drugs came out.
Right.
But it was really causing havoc with me. And so I was trying to deal with that. And then just to make it interesting, I have malaria, Valcipram malaria. You know, night sweats, soak the bed every night. And so I just couldn't manage it all.
So what did you do?
Well, I left law school. I went to work in they told me to leave. And I went to work in a law firm. And I was a paralegal in a law firm. And I thought, you know, I'm going to do this. So in California, you can read law with a judge or an attorney.
Oh.
And you have to pass an additional test on the way. They call
Right.
it the baby bar, but it's not a baby. It's 7 hours, one day,
Wow.
and it's tough. And you're expected to perform on a kind of level that you achieve ultimately over 3-4 years in law school.
Ooh.
And so I passed the baby bar, and it was a struggle. And then I got myself down a little further down the road. I was certificated by the bar to take the bar. I studied with a judge, a wonderful man, and then I put myself in a position to, after all the studies and the other things, I was certificated, I was preparing to take the bar. And then one day, when I was exercising, an elephant sat on my chest, and the
Heart
pain
attack.
started radiating down my left arm, and my blood pressure was 220 over 110,
Oh.
and I knew I was in trouble. And so I went to the VA, and 3 stents later in my main artery, I was released, and
That was
so
the end of law school.
now that was the end of all that. I knew I couldn't handle this.
So
It
how
was
did
just-
you? So how did you get the job of VOS?
Well, as a VSO,
VSO.
I was post commander, Jewish war veterans.
Yes, right.
And one of the members of my post,
That's
dear
post
man,
138.
post 138,
Okay.
dear man, Maurice Rothheiser. Maurice, World War II vet, Europe and Japan.
Oh,
And he was liberating camps at the end of the war. Jewish man liberating camps. And Maurice came to me after a meeting one day and he said, Marc, I don't know what to make of this. And I said, well, what's that, Maurice? He said, well, I went to the Sepulveda VA. And he said, and I looked on a directory board of all these various veteran organizations that are there to provide assistance to veterans seeking disability claims, so forth. I don't see Jewish war veterans there. Why is that? We were the first veterans organization recognized by Congress over 100 years ago. You know why that is? I said, Maurice, it's a good question. I don't have the faintest idea. So my response to that was, okay, let's do something about it. I looked into it, called Jewish war veterans, did this, did that, found this organization, NVLSP, and they are a national organization that helps train attorneys and others to handle veterans law. I studied through them with their study material. I passed the test, was accredited by the VA to be an accredited service officer for Jewish war veterans, and I have an office.
I love it.
And
How long have you been doing it now?
5 years.
5 years.
And Maurice,
A good man.
he passed a few weeks ago.
Oh, sorry.
And my little saying goodbye to Maurice was to tell everyone what Maurice had done for me.
Yes,
And through me, everyone I touch.
correct.
And I said, you know, Maurice goes on,
Yeah.
and he lives on.
In you.
And
With
I
his
was
touch,
just
right?
an instrument of his good intent.
Right.
And so I touched lives, and I said, I told everyone there that I'm here because of Maurice. And I've touched the lives of a lot of people. World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the Gulf Wars. And we can all thank Maurice and his question.
Well, I think we thank Maurice, but we thank you for taking up that sword of his and carrying it on to others. Because there are so many people that come from wars that we've talked about that just come back and just bundle up and can't do anything. You came back and you went here, there, tried this, tried that, went through a lot of things, but in the end, you found a mentor, but you were there. Without you, a lot of lives would not go on, Marc. They just wouldn't.
And the hope that people can have when they watch this show. I mean, this should be textbook 101.
Right.
Not only can you overcome, but here are the people that can help you
Yeah,
do it.
right.
Most people cannot do it themselves.
Yeah, they just can't.
And so it's up to the rest of us that have whatever skill sets we have to make things happen.
Right.
And that's what we do.
It's absolutely so, and I believe that. And for me, I can tell you quite honestly that if I weren't doing this, I would have no reason to put my feet on the floor every morning.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I fight it.
Yeah.
Every morning I fight it,
Yeah.
putting my feet on the floor. But I have to do it. I have to make reveille.
Yes.
There's no
Yeah,
choice.
I get it.
You just have to fall
I
out
get
and
it.
make formation.
Yeah, I love it. I get it. Wow. I cannot tell you how much thanks I have. Naturally, I know Dove respects you unbelievably. I think the people out there get an idea now what our men do go through for us. And I thank you with all my heart for what you do, what you've done, and what you will be continuing to do. You're a young man, my friend, and we need you to continue to help others like you're doing.
Well, thank you, love. Thank
God
you very
bless you.
much.
I really mean it. And my dear friends, it ain't over. How can it be over? How can it be over when you have people like this, people like this? I thank them. I know you do too. We will be back. Thank you. God bless.
I'm gonna live until I die. The blues knows I lay low, I'll make 'em stay low.